Hey guys, it's Camus here, and I believe this is Chess Beauty 57. And at the end of Chess Beauty 56, the Caterpillar one, we left you with this study. And I wanted to sort of return to normalcy after the bizarre and more or less trivial nature of the Caterpillar theme. Perhaps I chose a study that was too well known because a couple of guys have already solved it pretty much instantly. So, but if you've never seen this study, it's from Reti. It's from 1928, and it's white to play and draw. And at first glance, this doesn't seem like it's even possible, because, for instance, if you plan to queen the pawn, black has an extra bishop and can just bring the bishop to b5, and that pawn is not going anywhere. Also, the black pawn on g6 is already out of the reach of the white king. So if he tries to chase it directly, it's not going to work. And the only thing that white is going for him is his king position and the fact that his pawn is close to queening. So as it turns out, this is enough to draw. So if you haven't seen this position, give it a try now, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so I assume that you were able to solve this or not. And so let's just look at some tries for white. As I mentioned in the introduction, e7 doesn't work because after bishop to b5, the pawn is not queening and the white king can't catch the pawn. So that doesn't work. So how about king to f7, attacking the pawn? But it's a race, again, that white is not going to win. g5, king to f6, g4, king to f5, g3, f4. Naturally, it's just going to queen. So obviously, those two tries do not work. The winning idea is, back to the start position, king to e7. And this takes advantage of the fact that the king can move horizontally at the same time he's covering vertical ground. So even though he's moving away from the pawn horizontally, vertically he's actually one square closer to catching him, the principle of the square of the pawn, as you know. And it's this curious principle of the king's move that Reti exploited in this and other related studies. And this one's pretty famous. There's another one that's almost as famous, actually more famous, that doesn't have the bishop. Okay, so after king to e7, we're one square away from being able to capture the pawn. So really, black has no choice but to play g5. But assuming he thought he could bring his king over to stop the white pawn and let the bishop protect the pawn on g6 at some point, that doesn't work either. King to b6, king to f6, king to g5, and we just catch up. So that's not going to help out. So but after king to e7, as I said, the only move is g5. And now the king continues his rather curious journey. Now he goes to d6. Okay, and this accomplishes three things. First of all, he's clearing the way for his pawn to queen. And also, he's one move from entering the square of the pawn. So he can double back and try to win this pawn. And the third thing is, he's actually going to be in a position to attack the white bishop when it comes to b5. So now g4 is the best move for black, but let's try some other tries. If he tries king to b6, the idea of bringing the king to help, king to e5, g4, e7, bishop to b5, king to f4. And that's just a draw. So after king to d6, you can try also king to b8, trying to get in front of white's pawn, but king to e5, bishop to h5, e7, king to c8, king to f5, and now the pawn is threatened. If black loses his pawn, these get no winning chances. g4, And now we just queen, and the king is not there in time. So the way Reti composed this problem is exquisitely balanced, because in all variations, the black king is too far away to help out. And so let's go back to after king to d6, and I said the best move was g4. Okay, and this is an important crossroads in the puzzle, because now one of the bishop's diagonals is blocked, and he can no longer get to h5. So in order to stop the pawn, he has to go to b5, and this is what the puzzle exploits. So now is the moment where white makes his move, e7, and now the bishop absolutely must go to b5. And now, as I mentioned, the whole point of white moving his king to the left side of the board is so he could play king to c5. And he's going to gain a crucial tempo here because he's attacking the bishop. If he takes the bishop, then, of course, it's a simple matter. We just queen, and black's pawn doesn't have time to queen. So he can try running with the pawn right away, but it doesn't work. g2, queen. We queen first. He's got a queen, but that's just a dead draw. So after king to c5, he can also try maybe bishop to e8, blockading our pawn. But we're in the square of the pawn now. King to d4, g3, king to e3, g2, king takes f2, queens, takes, and that's just a draw. So after king to d7, king to c5, the bishop has to move for there to be any hope. And probably his best square is bishop to d7, both keeping an eye on the e8 square, as well as protecting the pawn on g4. But the problem is the bishop is doing two things, and that's known as overloading a piece. And after king to d4, it's just a draw. This was the end of the study as Reti composed it. But let's just look on a little bit further to make sure that he's correct. He can try king to b7 with the idea of relieving the bishop of blockading duty here, but it doesn't work. Well, actually, before we look at that, after king to d4, he can try g3, king to e3, g2. Once again, we catch the pawn just in the nick of time. So his only other try after king to d4 is king to b7, and then we play king to e3, king to c6, king to f4, king to d5, and now we queen. Bishop, queen, takes, dead draw. Beautiful puzzle, and one that has practical implications for endgame play. I know many endgames don't involve this type of subtlety or the possibility, but just knowing that it exists and also being apprised of the power of the king and seeing how it can cover vertical and horizontal distance makes this a valuable study. So it's probably one that everybody who doesn't already know it should know it. Okay, so we'll look ahead to Chess Beauty 58. This is white to play and win, which is actually a lot tougher than it might look. So have a shot at it, and we'll see you in Chess Beauty 58. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.